It was relatively easy for me to be here, and I told Gerard that I wanted to support you guys in your first adventure, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak for a few moments, as well as to be here with you. I have a long-standing love for your industry. When I had my own commercial record center in New Orleans during the 80s, we sold it to Pierce Leahy a long time ago, but we had a significant-sized tape balls. In those days, they were rather larger than they are today, but I guess since that time, I've been more or less out of the IT side of the industry, and I've focused more on the box side. What I'm going to be presenting on today is selling to Vito, very important top officer, who is a decision maker. My practice as a consultant has varied over the years, and I just want to give you a little bit of a background so that you can get a perspective on why I think I'm able to speak about this. And that is, first of all, as a consultant, I have been very involved in the commercial records management industry since about 1984. And then after I sold my business to Pierce Leahy, I was hired by Xerox to develop a couple of products for them as an outsourced product manager. So as an outsourced product manager, I worked with their product development people, and we developed something we called at the time file room management, outsourced file room management, which was a companion piece to Copy Center and Mail Room, which, as you know, goes on in a lot of law firms and hospitals and things like that. And then in addition to that, we developed a product called archival imaging, which is obviously way outdated at this point, but in the early 90s, we had something that we were very proud of. While I was with Xerox as a consultant, I never was an employee, I worked with about 450 Xerox sales reps in the U.S. and Canada. And during that time, I called on over 1,200 Xerox customers from Toronto to San Diego, from Miami to Vancouver. And consequently, in order to train their sales force to sell records management services and some technology services, I had to learn their selling methodology. And then after I learned their selling methodology, I actually trained 450 sales reps. The net result of that was that I was the content expert on call anytime, anywhere in the United States or Canada, somebody was going in that had to do with document management. Electronic document management as well as traditional records management. So my claim to fame is I believe it's true to say that I've done more client needs assessments than anybody that I've ever met in this industry. I've done over 1,200. I've done them at Goldman Sachs, at Burger King, at you name the organization or the town, I've probably done something there. I tagged on with the Xerox guy, but they would say, here's Cary, basically. I got in the door with the Xerox card. Fortunately, they were able to go in a lot easier than I would have been able to. Okay, over the years in my practice in commercial records management, I've assisted in the startup of 407 commercial record centers in 16 countries. And now I'm up to about 285 sales training events, primarily for commercial record centers. So what you're going to see here is a sliver of that. This is just a little piece. It's not going to be, it should be bright and lively. I don't want it to be boring. Eating lunch, you're not going to bother me. I know that you're all behind schedule, so I'll make it tight. But I want to just bring to you a few thoughts that might help you sell in a very competitive marketplace. I can tell you this. Recently, I worked with one of my customers who owns both a record center and a tape vault and a document destruction business. And we did a test on how difficult it was to get into decision makers office. And we were able to statistically prove that it's about twice as hard to get half as many appointments in this year, 2006, as opposed to, let's say, 1985, when I was in my business. It was real easy to get in those days. So twice as hard to get half as many appointments means that it's 4 times more difficult. I think you'd probably agree with me. I mean, people are busy. Everybody's busy, you know? I mean, who in the world isn't busy? I think people are doing so much more with so much less that what we have to do in terms of sales is be really smart. We have to not only understand what we are, but also try to get to people who can make a decision. Now, when I teach sales training, there's a 7-step, you'll see a picture, a 7-step sales cycle that I use in consultative selling. And step 1 is prospecting. Guess what? It's always prospecting, right? Step 1. I spend the first day on prospecting. It's a 3-day course. Because that's the most important part of the whole business. How do I get into a decision maker? My God, this is so hard. Decision makers have walls built around them. And veto is a term that was developed by a gentleman called Anthony Caramello. This is the book, Selling to Veto. He's got 2 other books. I'm not stealing his information. I'm kind of modifying it and using it. But I highly recommend this. This is old. It's kind of like me. It's, I think, 12 or 13 years old. And some of the terminology that you use is 12 or 13 years ago. But I wouldn't worry about it because the ideas that he put forth in this book are so good, and he just absolutely has discovered the way through the door. So I highly recommend that if you have a chance. Another thing I highly recommend, and Steve Richards was saying earlier, he's got his iPod for his trip home. I guess he's going to be listening to country music, huh, Steve? You got it. Yeah. All right. So I recommend to my customers that they subscribe to Audible.com. Audible.com is books on MP3 that download directly into your iPod or whatever you got. It goes into my phone as well. And there are literally hundreds of business books on there, as well as I subscribe to the Wall Street Times, to the Harvard Business Review, so I get the monthly articles from the Harvard Business Review on it. Now, if I were a sales manager or an owner, I would require my salesmen to have an MP3 player in their car while they're driving from place to place. Because there is no better way to get new, modern information that will help you do anything, than this method that we have today, which is so small. My God, it's amazing. I have on my iPod 23 movies, 15 books, my family pictures, and God only knows what else, you know. So I do recommend that. You'll find everything from time management, getting things done is a book that I think is great about helping people control their time. It's actual method, and I think it works. All the way through guerrilla selling and selling to veto and all kinds of other things. And I find it a great way to learn. Anyway, enough of the plugs. Audible.com. Okay, now, I'm going to let you all read this for yourselves and decide whether sales on the left-hand side and marketing on the right-hand. Kind of like the chicken and egg. You know, which one came first? Sorry, I couldn't help myself. This is going in an article that I'm writing right now about the differences between sales and marketing. Does anybody have a definition of marketing or sales? Are they different? Are they the same thing? Anybody want to take a shot? Well, if not, I'm going to tell you my opinion of the difference. Marketing is everything that you do to put yourself in front of the customer, whereas sales is everything you do to close the deal. So the marketing step positions you in every kind of way to get into the door to begin the selling process. So is marketing or sales, which one came first? Marketing or sales? Well, I think the first salesperson was Eve, right? She sold, Steve, you know that. I know you read the Bible a little bit. She sold the apple to Adam, right? I wonder if she did some marketing first. What do you think? I'm not quite sure. But I can tell you that they go together. The little video that I showed before was meant to play here, but Gerard and I are both not capable of getting it to play simultaneously. So anyway, the video, you may have seen it, was a young lady, a very attractive but not made up young lady, sat down to be made up for an ad. And they show you what they did over, I guess, an hour, very quickly. And they made her look absolutely drop dead gorgeous, including lengthening her neck, slimming her shoulders, all sorts of things. The difference between perception and reality is what I'm talking about. Now, you're in an industry, it's similar to the commercial records industry, and some of you in that as well, that not a whole lot of people really know and understand. It's really hard to get people to pay attention to what you do unless there's some sort of terrible disaster that happens, and then they pay more attention to it. So when they look at you, we want them to know who you are. So that's all about marketing, right? I mean, everything from image all the way through how we get to sell. Sorry about that. We're doing an update right now.
Right, we start later.
What the heck?
Can you ask for your presentation here?
Sorry about that. Okay, not my laptop, it's Gerard's. So when we're talking about marketing, does anybody here admittedly have a marketing program? Not a sales program, but a marketing program, as I defined it. And I defined it as everything that you do to put yourself in the customer. You know, you do? Okay, I'm going to name a few things. Tell me if it's included. Television, newsprint, educational symposiums, expertise marketing, becoming an expert in your community and speaking and writing, in other words. Okay? What does it include?
It was the marketing, what we do, email newsletter every quarter. It's a calendar. We do it on certain dates throughout the year.
So newsletter?
Newsletter, we do fax, exchange faxes out every quarter.
Right.
We do trade shows a few times a year. So they're all on the calendar of what we're going to do throughout the year.
You mentioned trade shows, you mentioned newsletters, a calendar of events type of thing. Great, okay. That's all marketing, right? There's much more to marketing than that. I'm certainly no expert in marketing. However, I can tell you that there are literally hundreds of pieces to the pie. And I look at it as an amorphous mass, okay? I can't quite get my hands around marketing. And some of my customers have said, okay, so these days it's twice as hard to get half as many accounts. What do I have to do to get them to understand who I am and to get them to come to me? Now that's something that I think most of us have always had difficulty with, you know, particularly in the box storage business. They don't even know what it is, you know. So what we have to do is define what a marketing program is. You've done a job doing that. You've taken an attempt at it, and it is whatever it is. The question that I get from my clients is, how much should I spend on a marketing program? What should my marketing budget be? Let's forget about what we use. In other words, trade shows, things like that. What would I use? How much money should I put into it, forgetting about what I would use? So I reckon you probably have a number on your each one of your itemized lists that you say, this is what I'll spend this year. Was that something you grabbed out of the sky, or was it based on what you did last year plus 10%, or that kind of thing? I'd say most commercial record centers, and I would venture to say many media vaults, may not have a marketing budget. And so I know a couple of things that I suggest. The first thing is I would never spend a penny unless you know what that penny got you. For example, going to a trade show, it generates leads. You follow up those leads, and if you track it, you can see how much business you got directly from that trade show. I do 2 trade shows a year that I track absolutely, and it's amazing how, it might cost me $10,000 to go to a trade show, just me and my little booth, but I'll get, $200,000 worth of business from it. It's amazing to me. So that's a good investment. The things like radio and TV and all of that kind of stuff, it's never been used in our industry. What about internet marketing? Does anybody use any of that? Gentlemen over here, is it successful at this point?
Moderately.
Moderately, that's what I hear from most people, both sides of the coin. Take vaults and commercial record centers. And this whole thing with Google and Google metrics and all of that seems to work to some degree. But I don't think anybody has all of the right pieces of the puzzle yet. But that probably got the biggest potential for the future if we can figure out exactly how to do it, because you could spend a fortune on that. And I don't know much about it other than I'm an observer. But what I think there are 2 things that I recommend you do, regardless of what else you do. And I'll tell you my theory about how to develop a marketing budget. And that is that expertise marketing is something that's very simple to do. I've done this in my own career. I write and speak. Okay? Now, I'm an expert, because I'm up here in front of you guys talking. Who knows what an expert is. But when you write and speak, people consider you an expert. So you position yourself to be the expert in your industry, in your community. The other companies in town who do not write and speak will not be considered the experts, but you will, because you're in front of people. And I can tell you, trade rags and, there are just thousands of them, and local trade papers, etc., are dying for content. They would love to have you write for them. The other thing is take every occasion to speak in front of every group in your community, because that at least gets some number of business people in front of you. And what does it cost? Not much. It doesn't cost anything at all. You probably get a free lunch. So that's not a bad thing. The other thing that I recommend that you do is educational marketing. And having worked with Xerox for 6 years, I did 79 executive briefings. That's what they call them. They were a morning out for the executive at a hotel. They provided them breakfast. They had content experts lined up to give new ideas on what to do with things. And they did that in a 2.5-hour time frame and gave them a gift as they left. But what they were doing there, not only sharing legitimate information and knowledge, because that was what the focus of the education was, legitimate knowledge. However, they were closing at that meeting for a client needs assessment, a CNA, a survey, an assessment. The goal was, as people finished, that's what they did. They got permission to come in and do a CNA. Now, these are usually difficult to do because they take a lot of time of planning. And each one of these projects would take a minimum of 6 weeks to plan, and typically one full-time person to coordinate it. This is kind of a commercial, but I have the whole planning process. You can call me if you'd like, and I'll be happy to let you use it. Okay? So it is a very structured event with the 2 points of view. One is focusing on legitimate information and knowledge for the customer, and the second is closing for surveys or assessments. Okay. Other than that, I'm really trying to get my arms around this marketing side of my industry. There's all sorts of things that could fit in it. And then the last thing that I would say, which is basically all I know about this subject, is that your marketing budget ought to be based on what you think a new account is worth to you. Okay? Let's look at your present portfolio of clients. And let's look at the length of term on average that they stay with you. And let's look at what the average revenue is for those accounts, whatever it is. And then let's decide how many of those you want to get every year. Let's say 30, I don't know, 150. Well, if you know what a client's worth and you know how many you want to get, then we can make a decision about how much we're willing to give away to get it. And the giveaway could be any type of marketing as well as sales commission. Okay? That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. I'm not that sophisticated, but if I were doing it in a commercial record center or in a data media vault, that's what I would do. How many people here have ever encountered a gatekeeper? Everybody in the room goes, yeah. Okay, a gatekeeper is somebody that keeps you away from a decision maker, right? According to Anthony Parinello and his wisdom, there are two types of gatekeepers. The first type of gatekeeper is a receptionist, somebody who answers the telephone. And the other type of gatekeeper is the administrative assistant or personal secretary is the gatekeeper. They are two radically different people. They have different points of view and different approaches that we have to give them. So in the discovery process for a new account, we want to know who they are. If the gate, sorry about this. Could I say start way later? Okay, so the first, who is the receptionist or telephone operator, whoever it might be, may be in that job temporarily, either one way or the other. They may be, that may be a stepping stone job because they can't get the job that they want. And you never know who that person is going to be in the future, so you definitely don't want to be rude to them. The other thing is, it could be the veto secretary filling in for that receptionist. Okay? So when you get that person, you really need to attend to making friends with them. There's three ways to encounter a gatekeeper: over, around, or through. Right? This is, you can either jump over the gatekeeper, you can go around the gatekeeper, or you can go through the gatekeeper. Kind of like a fence. Over the gatekeeper is dangerous, because if you go over the gatekeeper, then you may cause hard feelings. They may become literally a block to you in the future. Going around the gatekeeper, depending on how you handle it, if you go around the gatekeeper to using a legitimate means. I have a client that told me last week that when they went in to a hospital to meet with one of the executives, she went in with one of her friends who knew him. Well, she went around the gatekeeper, and certainly, and when he went in, he knew the gatekeeper, but he didn't have to apologize for going around. And going through the gatekeeper means making friends with the gatekeeper. I always loved the movie Wall Street, where Charlie Sheen is the salesman and Michael Douglas, Gordon Gekko, remember Greed is Good? He is the guy, the target. And Charlie Sheen's trying to bag the elephant. That's what they say in the movie. Well, he's the big investment banker. He's got all the money. And I'm playing with my machine. No problem. So Charlie Sheen has on his calendar that this is the date of Gordon Gekko's birthday. So he decides he's not going to go to the office. He's going to take a bouquet of roses and a box of cigars and just go in and see the gatekeeper. Now, every single day for the last 6 months, we're rebooting, I think. Okay. You're an expert? Okay.
Expert.
I am too. I don't know what to do it once it comes up. But anyway, so Michael Douglas, he gets into the gatekeeper, and she knows him so well because he calls every single day. He gives her the roses, and he says, I've got a box of cigars for Garden Gecko. It's his birthday. Can I please see him? She relents, and she says, okay, Charlie, let me go see. So she goes in, comes back out. He says, he'll see you. Just wait. So he waits all day. All of a sudden, the door opens, and Garden Gecko says, okay, kid, come on in. You get 5 minutes. And that's all he needed, was 5 minutes. And if I can crack the door and get to a decision maker's office, that's all I need is 5 minutes. And I always laugh when people tell me, well, you know, it's hard to get to decision makers. I just go see anybody I can see. Well, as far as I know, the only people that make decisions are the decision makers. And so therefore, the only people I want to see is a decision maker. Now, it's not easy. That's the hardest part of selling, getting into a decision maker's office. Now, when the slides come back up, you will see certain slides that say certain things. And there will be a description of 4 types of people in any organization. The first type is the decision maker. And the decision maker, indeed, is the person who makes a decision. As we know, depending on the organization that you're calling on, it may be the IT manager, it may be the IT operations manager, it may be some vice president of something up above that, depending on the size of the organization. And I think it's true to say, because I don't know the industry as well as I know the commercial records industry, but I do know that the top tier of business is pretty much gone. There are still a few left, but it's hard to find 10,000 box accounts every other day. And there is a huge market under the minimum, but the cost of sales is so high that it's hard to get to those. So we're all at this middle level now, looking at accounts and customers who range from small law firms and accounting firms up to small regional companies. I think we want all of them, because I would bet you that if you had, and again, I don't know the industry that well, but I would bet you that if you have a lot of under the minimum accounts, they're very profitable. Correct? It's hard to get them because cost of sales is high. Okay, so decision makers vary in every organization. Some organizations have very highly educated people, like hospitals, where decision making in almost anything is driven down lower because these people have budgets. Typically, a decision maker has a budget, and that's the budget he's going to be dealing with. As you know, in IT and large IT shops, the decision maker typically is the IT manager or someone like that. The second person that you'll encounter is a gatekeeper. And the gatekeepers, as we've talked about, fall into those 2 realms. Click the next one. There you go. And we've talked enough about that. Now, the decision maker is looking for benefits and results. Last year, at the planning meeting in October, right now they're sitting somewhere in some hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, can we see his messages?
You don't want to see Gerard's message.
Yeah, sure, that's true. Come to the Honky Tonk Cafe, Houston, Texas, after 5 o'clock. Okay.
Still over $30 from last night.
Okay, so underneath that little goofy thing is decision influencer. And the decision influencers are people that have something to do with the decision-making process, but generally speaking, they are not the decision maker. But they're looking for advantage. I think it's, there you go, good man. It's still there. Now it's in 2 places. pretty good with all the commotion going on. Y'all eating and then, okay. So the decision influencer is looking for advantage. He's trying to figure out what this product or service will do to help him. Now, there's one of the types of people that Anthony Parinello talks about, which I think is absolutely great, is the Seymour. He actually spells it S-E-Y-M-O-R-E. But a Seymour is looking for features. And a Seymour is the guy who gets in your way. Every time you get close to a sale, he wants more information. More information, more data, he wants the Seymour, right? We don't want to be anywhere near Seymour. Seymours are typically accountants or people who have to prove the value of something by numbers or something like that. We want to be at the decision maker level so that he allows us and gives us the authority to go to these other people. So the Seymours are looking for features. And the consumer or the user in the organization is looking for function. And that's what there are different roles in the buying and the selling process are. Clickety click. You standing up there for me? Wow.
No, you won't.
Okay. Okay. I'm a somewhat anal guy. Okay? I am very interested in making things happen through process. If I have a process, I can know how to measure that process and how to get through it based on the steps of the process. And I believe that selling is a process. As a matter of fact, if you go to Xerox and you talk to Xerox salespeople, the sales managers are really operations people because their job is to measure and to manage a business process, which is a sales cycle. Okay? So if I've got a process, and I'll show you mine a little bit later, but it's just the idea is to follow the steps of the process. In sales, it's true to say, and I think virtually everyone agrees with these three things. The first step to successful sales is hiring qualified people and then training them in a process that works and then managing the process. That doesn't seem too hard. You do that every day in your data media vaults. You hire competent people. You then have a process to work within that you can measure, determine, and then you manage to those process steps. So the first step is understanding your prospect. And here I believe that the difference between telemarketing and teleprospecting is this. You know, there are services, some of them may use it, that'll call people and get you appointments. And most of those appointments are not qualified appointments. They're just appointments. Well, I don't think that's bad. I'd rather have a qualified appointment before I go in. The statistic is 1 out of 27 phone calls get you an appointment, but not necessarily a qualified appointment. That's telemarketing statistic. Teleprospecting adds a step to it, that you know three things. One, that the prospect has a need for your service. Two, they have the money to pay. And three, that you are, in fact, engaged with a decision maker. That makes it a qualified prospect. Now, that makes it a real prospect. Now, once I get in to see him, I want to make sure that he fits in my sales cycle. So the first thing I want to do is make sure he fits into my sales cycle. My sales cycle is a 60-day sales cycle. Who manages the sales cycle? The client or the salesman? The salesman should. The salesman should either push through or throw out people or companies through this method. Because you don't have time to deal with people who aren't going to buy. You know, there are people who won't tell you no because they like you. So I want to push them through. So in order to do that, I have to know everything I can about that customer. I need to research. I need to look at their website. I need to find out everything about their customer before it goes in. The bigger the customer, the more research I want to do. And when I go in, before I go in, I want to make an investigatory inquiry call. Who are the best two people in an organization to ask about that company, to find out about the company, in the company?
Reception.
Well, maybe, but if you can get them to talk, sure, that's the gatekeeper. But I'm thinking about the marketing department and the sales department. The marketing department wants to tell you all about their company, and salesmen want to tell you everything because they might sell something to you. As a matter of fact, you can gain relationships with other salesmen and really do some networking by learning about their companies as well. So the research means that I have as much information as I can before I actually make the initial call. When I make the initial call, I'm interested in only getting a 15-minute appointment. And I'm not going to talk about services, I'm not going to talk about products, I'm not going to talk about features, advantages, and benefits. I am not going to talk about anything like that. I'm only going to talk about something of value to the client. So we use something called an IBS, an initial benefit statement, that conveys something of value that the customer might need. I'll have a slide a little bit later that talks about that. Once you've gone, you're ready to do, you've done all of your work to prepare, we do a pre-call plan. Now, almost everybody who goes through my sales training says, oh my God, you got to do a pre-call plan all the time. Well, if you don't plan, the results are always going to be less than expected. So a pre-call plan doesn't mean that you have to write everything down in little boxes and squares. It could be that you sit down at your desk, say "Om" a few times, and then answer some questions that you might have jotted down. Who is this customer? What do they do? Know everything fresh in your mind before you make that call or do the first face-to-face appointment. Always do a pre-call plan. Even if it's only 5 minutes, do a pre-call plan. Always do a post-call review, because I want to learn from what happened. And what I tell my clients is stay in vertical markets for a while. You stay in a vertical market, you'll learn that vertical market better. Your third or fourth call will be better. Now, if you do these kinds of things, and obviously I'm giving a very summarized version of all of these steps, if you do all of this, you will be successful at a greater rate than 1 out of 27. It appears that it's more like 1 out of 10. But again, that's a lot better than 1 out of 27. When you do the research required to find out who the decision maker is, your pre-call plan and your post-call review. Okay. When you send out a letter, this is an Anthony Parinello thing as well. When you send out a letter, rather than putting some boilerplate baloney in the letter, what he does in this book is he has dozens of examples of what he calls headline letters. At the very top of the letter, rather than your logo or anything, is a statement that would make sense to the customer. And it would be similar to what we call an IBS, an initial benefit statement. You would get this letter. Our company assisted the Acme Supply Company to recover their data, which resulted in and continued operation the following day after a major disaster. Take that with me. Sorry about that. Very pointed. Now, that's just an example with my limited knowledge of your industry. But use those types of things to get attention. You all probably are starting to get these overnight mail envelopes. You know, people open those. I even open them when I know they're not any good. That might be the way to do it. Yes?
That is a good headline letter. I agree with that approach. Mm-hmm. I don't agree, and it's only my opinion, that putting the word frustrated with a question mark and then trying to answer the question, do you have files that are, what, do you have tapes that are whatever, you know, then you need Richards. I don't like that kind of, that's my own personal, I don't like that. But I like, that doesn't seem like a headline letter to me.
That's the one I just did?
Yeah, I mean, I like the concept of it, that's informative.
There's a page in here which I won't find right now, but it lists what you do and what you don't do. And one of the things that you don't do is say anything negative. Oh, frustrated, is this bothering you? Is this a pain? No, stay away. Stay to saying a value statement. We did this for a customer. And particularly that one said the name of the customer. Obviously you have to get permission. The best thing I've seen a client do recently was to not only get a client to give him a recommendation, you know, as we all want, but his client was willing to give him a letter on his stationery to send out to his associates, to the client's associates. Now, you know that never happens unless the client is very satisfied with the work done. Okay, so when we're selling what we should be selling, we're in the first 15-minute appointment. Rather than selling your vaulting services, rather than selling box storage or whatever it is that you'd be selling, we need to be selling a client needs assessment. The CNA process itself. What this does is it takes the harm away from the sale. There's no cost. The assessment becomes valuable to you regardless of whether you do business with us or not. Allow us to do an assessment so we can creatively come up with solutions that will be valuable to you. Okay? Now, the CNA process is different in a data media vault than it is in a record center, but generally speaking, there are several steps to it, and the result of the CNA would be something that I call issues. And an issue is simply something that needs to be considered. It usually points at a problem, and its counterpart has to be a solution that you provide. You know, whether it be data media vaulting, tape rotation, e-vaulting, escrow, you know, I don't know much about that, but you know, you all are expanding your group of services, and so by doing that, you can have more value to your client. So the issues point to solutions. This is just my sales cycle that I use, and it's very simple. I won't spend much time on it. Prospecting, initial contact. The goal of step 1 is to get an initial meeting. The goal of step 2, which is the initial 15-minute meeting, is to sign a CNA. And by the way, I recommend that when your client signs up for a CNA, client needs assessment, they sign a non-disclosure agreement, because that keeps their information private and your information private, so it can't be used with a competitive bid. The output of that is the issue statements themselves, whatever they are, 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever it happens to be, issues that need to be attended to that point to one of the services that you provide. Now, in step number 4, the most critical thing is that you get agreement on the issues before you go to a proposal stage. That means you go back to the client without a proposal. You go back in with the issues, and you discuss the issues, and you take away any objections before the proposal, that you've actually resolved all of that before you go in. And we recommend that they initial each issue, and you change them to meet whatever requirements that they have, as long as they don't describe the issue improperly. Then proposal writing. The output of the issue statement is the generation of solutions. The proposal writing obviously generates a proposal package. The presentation and close obviously has to do with getting that account to put ink on the paper. And then this implementation step is all of the work you have to do to get that customer on board. Okay? And obviously there are a number of steps that you take in doing that. And then, once he becomes an account, you cross-sell services. Now, let me just mention this because I've read some of the, I'm participating in your listserv, and I really am learning a lot from you guys. And the other day, there was a discussion about e-vaulting and about co-location and things like that I don't know much about. But I do believe that by widening your girth of services, you have a great opportunity with clients. For example, e-vaulting, even though you may not like it, or even though you may have some judgment about it that in some way conflicts with your business, is one of the easiest ways to get somebody to be a customer. Once they're a customer, you are now selling to the gold mine. You're in the gold mine, hitting the pick on gold, because customers are the easiest people to sell to. So if you just get in with something like e-vaulting service, or it could be anything, but that's just an example that I know works. In the commercial records industry, we definitely put that tool on our salesman's tool belt. We want to arm them with the right tools, but we only want to take off the right tool when they need it. In other words, you don't want to sell something that either they don't need or that would block the sale. You're only selling the things that you can provide for them. Now, what this does is it provides a model that looks like this. You have a core business, and you pretty well must know who you are. I mean, most of y'all are mature businesses. And knowing who you are, meaning having a core that you center around, requires that your service model amplify your core. Each service must, in some way, add value to your core business. If it doesn't, you have to really think about why I'm doing it. It doesn't mean you can't, but you at least ought to know why you're doing something. Okay, sales management process is managing activities for results. That's what that says. And it includes sales rep income planner, sales cycle management, and contact management. How many people here have a contact management strategy in place with their clients? A couple, okay. And what I mean by that is knowing how often you call on that client. There are three things that you ought to be doing in a contact management strategy. The first is taking a pulse of the client. What's up? You know, how you doing? What you need. The second thing is seeing how you're doing, having them score you. Because if you don't do that, you may find out that you're going to lose the account. And the third thing is selling something else. So those are the three things you ought to be doing. The contact strategy is usually monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually, with no client being less than an annual call of some type. I have a client right now that has about 5,000 customers, and one of the customer service reps has 700 customers that she has to deal with. And she told me, Cary, I can't do it. I said, I can't. I want to. Well, of course. How can anybody keep a contact up with 700 customers? I believe it's something like a 300 to 1 situation. That's about right. Some of them, a few of them will be monthly, but rarely. Most of them will be quarterly or semi-annually, and a great bunch of them, particularly small ones, will be annual. So you need to develop that along with your, okay.
Now, ask Cary, on that model, is it, in your experience, better to have the people who make the sales end up being the customer rep? Or once someone makes a sale to a customer, they should be moved out of the equation and handed over to a separate person?
Let me repeat the question for the recording, and that is it better to have the salesman who sells it become the customer rep or have a different person? There's no question what my belief is. You have hunters and farmers. Hunters hunt and farmers farm. Because a hunter's job is to bring in new accounts and to get rid of them as quickly as possible so you can go hunting some more. Now, some of you have heard me tell this story because I've told it so many times it hurts. But the truth is that a salesman and operations manager go on a hunting trip. Okay, they get to the campsite, and the salesman tells the operations guy, you set up the campsite, I'm going to go get us dinner. So 3 or 4 hours pass, the tent's up, the pots and pans are hanging on the line, the fire is roaring, there's logs sitting around the fire to sit on, everything's perfect, operationally efficient. All of a sudden, here comes the sales rep running through the campsite. There's a gigantic grizzly bear following him. He yells to the operations guy, you shoot him, skin him, and cook him, I'm going to get us breakfast. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is what I believe. The sales rep's job is to bring the bear to the campsite and to get the heck out there and sell. But he better bring the bear in with a prepared operations manager, or the operations manager gets eaten. Isn't that correct? I've been in both shoes. I've brought bears in to unprepared operations people, and I have received them. And ain't nothing worse than getting a grizzly bear eat you. So where's this operations guy's got to have the gun cocked, the skinning knife, and the fire roaring. Bam, skin, cook. Okay? So to answer your question, hunters hunt, farmers farm. Different types of people. If you go to Xerox and IBM, you see, there's a room with the hunters that they literally are bouncing off the walls. Yes, sir.
Okay, Cary, this is going to go into the discussion you and I had about, is there a $100,000 a year salesman in this industry?
Absolutely.
Very few. But to do that, you've got to have some kind of a residual income coming in from the business that they've generated. Therefore, it seems to me like that salesperson, stop.
No, I'm listening.
Your wheels are turning.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that, yes, I do want the salesman to sell and the operations people to handle, but then when it's time to renegotiate, and there's going to be dadgum Cintas and dadgum somebody else coming in trying to get that, and we've got to go through this stuff, or I need that salesman to jump back into it. So it seems to me like
that's a possibility. It is a possibility, and there's nothing perfect in anybody's selling method or selling cycle. But I want to tell you, we've talked about this, as you said, Steve. First of all, remember on one of those other slides that has developing a compensation plan. You have to develop a compensation plan that allows you to get good salespeople. Remember I said you got to have qualified salespeople, they have to sell in a process, and they have to be managed. So we have to get qualified salespeople. And to get qualified salespeople, you better pay them, right?
absolutely.
I got a customer right now that pays $95,000 a year to a salesman who gets 0 accounts.
No, less.
Okay. I also have a client, or almost a client, in the Northeast who has 3 million boxes. This, of course, I'm in that industry mostly. And 3 million boxes, and I said, well, how many salesmen do you have? He said, 1. I said, okay, 1 salesman. He said, yeah, but we got 6 vice presidents and we all sell. So I said, how do you measure the performance of those salespeople? It was quiet on the phone. I said, well, what about the salesman? He says, well, to be truthful with you, I should have fired him 3 years ago. Right? Who good is that? I don't know. But I'm a believer in getting the best salesman I can get, putting no top stop on it, getting rules into the system, setting up something that you can live with. Remember that question before, Steve, about how do I determine what am I willing to spend to get 1 new account? In the commercial records business, it's an annuity thing. In your business, there's some number that you can put on it. So you should be willing to share some amount to get that.
I ask everybody here, is Honest Engine, does anybody have a salesman that's earning $100,000 a year? You do?
Yeah. I found 5, Steve, in the other side of the business so far. And that's the only people who've responded to me. And I have 2 of them on my customers. Now, I'll tell you, I don't know about you guys, but $100,000 isn't as much as it used to be. It's not a huge number. I would expect them to make $100,000. But you have several things. First of all, you have to have a book of services that'll support it. You can't send them out there to sell vaulting services and nothing else. They don't have anything else to sell. They can't make any more money. You have to have services that support the comp plan. And you have to be willing to give up something to get something in return. So, I mean, I have one. I gave a guy a headache yesterday going through it. He says, wait a minute. I said, okay, it's kind of hard to show a spreadsheet over the telephone, you know, but I don't want to talk about it. Now, if anybody wants to talk about it, please call me. I'd be delighted. Okay, so services lead to a services strategy. The services strategy leads to a pricing plan and a comp plan. Okay? This is basically what goes into a comp plan. You'll get copies of this that will be posted on my website, and Gerard said that he's going to make a CD or a DVD or something, make it available. Okay, am I okay for 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to go through these 2 slides because if you boil this book down to a bunch of statements, this is what you'd find. Always pre-call plan every sale. Yes, every sales call, phone and face-to-face. Always do a pre-call plan. It's like going on a trip. If you don't have a roadmap, you'll never get to where you're going. Know your prospect. There is never enough knowledge. Obviously, a $50 a month account, you don't spend 14 hours doing the research. But those that you are worth it, spend the appropriate amount of time knowing them. Show them the money, because that's what decision makers are interested in. Cost and benefit. You set the time for the appointment. How about Thursday afternoon at 2? Never say, when can I see you? Avoid all distractions. Don't talk about golf, sports, and family pictures. Everybody likes to talk about golf, right? Everybody likes to talk about, you see a picture on his credenza, and you might talk about the golf picture or whatever. But the thing is, you're there for one reason, to sell. And you might want to spend time talking about golf after he's agreed to the CNA, but not now. I had a customer tell me a couple of weeks ago, they went in, they started talking about golf, and 15 minutes passed by, the guy got up and left. And he says, where are you going? He says, you asked me for 15 minutes, we've been talking about golf. That's it. Don't drink coffee on a sales call. It wastes time. Yeah, I said, okay, you want to get a cup of coffee? No, let's not do that. Avoid all distractions. Don't what? I said that. Never wear a pen in your shirt pocket. Leave the nerd squad to Best Buy. Determine if the prospect is the decision maker. Only decision makers make decisions. Or as George Bush said a few weeks ago, I'm the decider.
How do you determine that?
You ask them.
You just ask them straight out?
Oh, I'm going to. Well, there's 2 parts to it. He asked, how do you determine it? That's a very good question. All right, the first part is you do your research, and you do as much as you can to determine who the decision maker is through both your research and your discussions with the marketing department, the salesman, whoever else will give you information. Okay, now, once you've determined that that's the decision maker, it doesn't mean that he's the decision maker, he or she. So when you get in there, one of the first things you're going to do is say, by the way, Mr. Jones, I really appreciate you seeing me. Will you be the decision maker on this project?
Why do you ask?
Because prospects lie.
They do lie. Oh my God.
They are the decision maker.
Absolutely, they do lie. And they might tell you, I am. And you get all the way down to step 6, and he says, well, I got to take it to the committee. But I'd rather find out about the committee in step 2. I'd rather, that's the imperfect world, and selling is nothing but hard. I think all of us would agree, ain't nothing easy about selling. Okay, I don't know what else to tell you, but I would ask them. And when I sign them up for a CNA, I would not do it unless I got a non-disclosure agreement.
How about if you said, who do you go to for help when you're making a decision like this?
That's a good way to do it. Yeah. Can I use that one?
Should you ask them at the outset if it's something new that you're selling them, whether they have the budget for this? Because that's one of the things.
Oh yeah, because remember we said to make somebody a prospect, he has to have a need for the service, the money to pay, and he has to be a decision maker. And then the fourth thing is we have to know he's in our sales cycle. We don't know that till we get in, because things can jump in the way of a sales cycle, like an audit or anything. But yeah, we want to know if he has the money to pay.
Because
Now,
people like IBM, when they sell to you, it's the first question they ask: is this budgeted? And if you say no,
Yeah.
they won't progress with
Well,
the sale at all.
hey, what's wrong with that question? I love it.
No, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not
Yeah.
something
You have
that...
to couch things like that properly. And you don't want to blast over people, but you just definitely want to ask them, because it is. You're right. I've been in those meetings, and they are very interested in whether you can pay.
You can talk yourself out of an opportunity, though. If they don't know what they need, if they don't know your service and don't know, how do you say it's on your budget? You're going to say, hey, is this in your
Okay,
budget?
well, that's why when we sell a CNA, a client needs assessment, we're not talking about solutions. We're talking about an assessment. Assessment to do what? To look at your data processing backup issues and needs and requirements. Whatever. You're not selling anything. So as a matter of fact, you don't know what the solution is. The trite way of saying it, if you walked in and the client said, yeah, just tell me the price, and you could say, it would be like a doctor writing a prescription without a diagnosis. It would be malpractice. I can't tell you what you need because I have no idea. The only way I can do it is do the assessment. Okay? Now, that's my opinion. None of this works all the time. We're talking about an imperfect type of thing, but what we want is 1 out of 10 to see us, not 1 out of 27. And we want, and I will tell you, this has been measured by the Gartner Group, if you get to point 3, agreement, doing the CNA, you have a 75% close rate. That is true. The close rate goes way up when you get to CNA. And then when you walk in with the issues, and you get them to agree with the issues, whoa, when you come in with the proposal, how can they argue with it? They've already agreed with the problems. You've got solutions. Now we're going to negotiate. Okay? Okay. Also determine the decision-making process. If they say, well, no, I'm not the decision maker, but I do these things. Well, know what it is up front. And if they say it's a committee, can I then present this solution to a committee? Never agree with objections. Always acknowledge, clarify, respond, and confirm. Tell me it costs too much.
Costs way too much.
It seems like these days everything costs too much.
Way too much.
Way too much.
I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah. Well, how much is too much? What's a salesman's trick? First of all, acknowledge it. You don't say, stupid, it's not too much. You say, it seems like everything costs too much. And he comes back and he says, way too much. Well, how much is too much? Always come back with a question.
When you say too much, what do you mean by
Yeah, tell me more. Salesmen should always be asking questions with questions. Okay. Treat everyone as a prospect. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you'll get. Anybody know what an elevator speech is?
Yeah.
If anybody wants a copy of how to develop one, send me an email, FileMan@FileMan.com, and I'll send you how to do it. It is, you get on the elevator on the 25th floor, you see a guy or a person in the elevator that might be of interest, and he asks you, what do you do? We've got till the first floor to tell him. You should all have an elevator speech that should be succinct and should also get a CNA closed that the door opens on the first floor. Understanding buying signals. What is she really saying? Notice how politically correct I am. I use the feminine pronoun. Understanding buying signals. Buying signals are sometimes hidden, cloaked in objections. Never be late. Late is deadly. Never be late. Understand how to differentiate from your competition only in terms of kindness. Return every phone call and every email in a timely manner. Always respond. Know where you are in the sales cycle. Always know where you are. If you don't have a sales cycle, how the hell do you know where you are? You have to have a process, whether it's a 7-step process like mine or some process, know where you are. Document it. Use ACT, if nothing else. ACT 2007 is a Sage owns ACT now. It's a CRM product as well. Very good. Return. Ask questions if you do not know. Don't be concerned about dumb questions. If somebody says, well, the widget doesn't work, ask them what the widget is, you know. Because, I mean, people respect people who say they don't know something. And also, if you don't know something that you should know, tell the client, you know, I don't know the answer to that, but I will get back to you no later than tomorrow. I will ask an expert on my staff. No, we're all experts, right? Okay, respect everyone. People get promoted. Listen to every word. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Here's one that most people don't believe. There is never a bad time to prospect. Friday afternoon is as good as Tuesday morning. That's a fact. Matter of fact, Friday's a better day. Most people are laid back on a Friday. Okay. One more, and then we'll close her down. Prospecting tips. When you are prospecting, and I say, in order to, again, I'm going back to the commercial records model, I want to close 4 to 5 accounts a month of our average size, and commercial records is 700 to 1,000 bucks account. I want to close 4 to 5 of those every month. So in order to do that, I believe that prospecting takes 1 full day a week. It could be 2 half days, but in order to get 25 in my sales cycle, which is what my goal is, some are going to come through as closes and some are going to jump out. I have to add 2 new prospects every single week. So it takes about a whole day to add 2 qualified prospects. It's hard. Start early. Be enthusiastic. You know, I see some salesmen standing up with the headset on. They're going like this to get enthusiastic because people are contagious when you're enthusiastic. I don't know if you know this, Steve, you might be interested in this. Entheos means the God within. Okay? From the Greek. I went to Jesuit high school and university, and I know all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, we used to beat your ass in basketball.
Become a constant learner. Always learn. Use that iPod. Don't listen to John Long. Become an expert. John's an expert. Ask him. Right? He is. I'm telling you. I know he is. Tell the truth, John. Take responsibility. Everything that you're working with is your responsibility. Act as if you are a consultant, not a salesman. Consultants have a different point of view. Ask the right questions. Take copious notes and ask for referrals. If you do that, you should make a difference in both your commission check and in your company's success. Thank you very much.